Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you with us because, wow, we are unpacking one of the most unprecedented, head-spinning weeks in recent global politics. We're going to break down this massive, multi-front pressure that is currently squeezing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu from literally every side. This is a story about international leverage, crumbling domestic alliances, and really, the potential unraveling of a decades-long political legacy. We've got a lot of fascinating ground to cover, so let's make this incredibly complex web crystal clear. For years, Benjamin Netanyahu has been known as the great survivor, right? The ultimate escape artist of Israeli politics. But the confluence of events over just the past few days, it's put him in a tighter spot than we have seen in a very, very long time. Okay, let's dive into this and see exactly how these dominoes started falling. Starting off with Section 1, a sudden geopolitical climb down. Now, to understand the sheer scale of the crisis that's currently paralyzing the Israeli parliament, we actually need to look outward first. The inciting incident here is a sudden, highly public geopolitical climb down that took place over a really intense 48-hour window. It all kicks off on Monday morning. Netanyahu announces his government has ordered the Israeli military to strike targets in Beirut, Lebanon. Now, this was a massive escalation. It essentially threatened to completely shatter a fragile ceasefire that U.S. President Donald Trump had pushed for back in April. Well, by Monday afternoon, Iran reacts furiously, threatening major global trade choke points. This, in turn, triggers an immediate reaction from Washington. By Monday evening, Trump is on the phone demanding a pullback. And by Monday night, in what's widely seen as a deeply embarrassing reversal, Netanyahu completely backs down. It is a severe case of political whiplash. Which brings us to Section 2, the Iranian domino. But you might be wondering, why did the U.S. intervene so aggressively and honestly so quickly? We have to look at the specific geopolitical mechanics that forced Washington's hand here. The absolute second Israel announced the strike on Beirut, Iranian negotiators basically signaled that they viewed it as an unacceptable violation of the ceasefire, and they threatened to just walk away from U.S. negotiations entirely. But here's the real kicker. Iranian state media issued a dual threat to global shipping. First, tightening their grip on the Strait of Hormuz, where, a small number of ships are still operating. Second, and perhaps way more alarmingly, they threatened to block the Bab al-Mandab. That is a vital alternative export route for Arab oil producers who are already affected by the Hormuz disruptions. So what does this all mean for us watching at home? It translates directly to fears of skyrocketing gas prices and choked supply chains. This direct threat to global trade is exactly what spooked Trump into immediate action. And that brings us to the infamous Monday evening phone call between Trump and Netanyahu. Now, the reports on how this call actually went down are highly conflicting. On one hand, you've got an Axios report claiming Trump was furious, even quoting him using expletives to question Netanyahu's actions. Conversely, well-connected Israeli sources like journalist Amit Segal really pushed back on that narrative. They insisted the tone was professional, albeit very tense. But look, regardless of the exact tone of the call, the concrete result was totally undeniable. Trump took to Truth Social to declare that Israel will not attack Hezbollah, talks with Iran are continuing, and Netanyahu reversed his course entirely. Moving on to Section 3, uproar across Israeli politics. As you can imagine, a foreign president publicly dictating Israeli military strategy? Yeah, that did not land well back home. This American intervention triggered a massive, immediate firestorm across the entire political spectrum. The attacks started rolling in instantly from the right. Naftali Bennett, the right-wing former prime minister, he did not mince words. He accused Netanyahu of losing control over Israeli sovereignty. And keep in mind, Bennett is widely regarded as Netanyahu's main rival in the looming elections. So this is a highly calculated, highly damaging strike right at Netanyahu's core base. And it wasn't just the right. From the centrist bloc, we have Yair Lapid, another former prime minister and the current opposition leader, who actually recently formed an electoral alliance with Bennett. Lapid accused Netanyahu of turning Israel into a protectorate state. As you can see, the prime minister is taking heavy, coordinated fire from multiple sides simultaneously. And the hits just kept coming. Gadi Eisenkot, head of the centrist Yesh Atid party, leveled this devastating critique, stating, "There has never been a prime minister in Israel who accepted such a humiliating demand." And this brilliantly illustrates the immense political danger Netanyahu is in right now, especially when you consider that Eisenkot's party has been enjoying a massive surge in the polls lately. They are directly capitalizing on this exact moment of perceived weakness. But perhaps the most dangerous uproar isn't coming from the opposition at all. Itamar Ben-Gvir, the far-right national security minister, directly threw Netanyahu's own past words right back at him, urging him to tell President Trump no.
Just think about that. Members of Netanyahu's very own governing coalition are publicly urging him to defy the United States. It places him in an impossible lose-lose situation.
Now let's look at Section 4, the crumbling domestic coalition.
Because completely independent of the U.S. pressure and this high-stakes geopolitical chess match with Iran, Netanyahu's government is functionally falling apart from the inside. To grasp why, we have to look at something called the ultra-Orthodox exemption. This is a policy that's been in place since Israel was founded back in 1948, and it basically exempts the ultra-Orthodox population from mandatory military service. Now, while that might have been sustainable in 1948, the ultra-Orthodox population has boomed thanks to high birth rates, and alongside it, the demands on the Israeli Defense Forces have grown immensely. It's become a massive point of friction, and here's the catch. Netanyahu completely relies on two ultra-Orthodox parties to maintain his parliamentary majority. So how exactly did this issue paralyze the government? Well, let's walk through it. In mid-2024, the Supreme Court ruled the exemption status quo was essentially illegal. In response, Netanyahu's government tried to kind of fudge the issue. They proposed a draft bill that technically introduces conscription, but it included so many loopholes that roughly 90% of the ultra-Orthodox population could still opt out. When literally nobody liked this, he tried to just kick the can down the road last month, suggesting they defer the bill until after the next election. And ultimately, this led to the fatal blow. The ultra-Orthodox parties turned on him and voted with the opposition to dissolve the Knesset early. This officially paves the way for new elections, likely happening in September or October.
Which brings us to Section 5, the end of Mr. Security.
Zooming out for a second, we really have to ask what this wild confluence of crises means for Netanyahu's historic, self-cultivated legacy. Arguably, his entire enduring electoral appeal is built on a very specific pitch. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast it shows. A year ago, his pitch was incredibly strong. He had thoroughly degraded Hamas and decapitated Hezbollah leadership during the June 2025 12-day war, and he positioned himself as uniquely capable of coaxing the U.S. into striking Iran with very little blowback. But the reality on the ground today is drastically different. Hamas is still in control of Gaza, Hezbollah has proven to be a highly capable, very resilient adversary, and instead of coaxing the U.S. is now imposing deals on Israel and appears totally unlikely to achieve its strategic objectives regarding Iran. The impending reality of a U.S.-imposed deal threatens to completely undermine Netanyahu's entire political brand. If Trump forces a deal just to appease Iran and protect global shipping routes, it could very well constitute a massive strategic failure for Israel regarding Iran, while simultaneously tying Israel's hands and hindering their objectives in Lebanon and Gaza. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative question. Has Netanyahu's expansive understanding of security finally dug his political grave? For his entire career, he's perpetuated a vision of Israeli security that relies on ultimate force and leverage, a promise he now appears completely unable to fulfill on multiple fronts. Will the great survivor pull off one last miraculous escape, or are we literally witnessing history unfold right now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope this breakdown helped clarify the incredible complexities of this moment, and I absolutely cannot wait to dive into our next topic with you. Stay curious.